All right. It's time for Buckeye Grove Instant Access.
It's about time.
With the latest breaking news, analysis, and much more from around the world of Ohio State. Brought to you by BuckeyeGrove.com and the Unscripted Ohio Podcast Network.
You're so money and you don't even know it.
Let's move quickly and hand it off to our host, Kevin Noon.
It's time to start running!
Hey, welcome to the BIA podcast. I am your host, Kevin Noon, and I want to thank everybody for stopping in and listening to our podcast. I will be joined by a special guest here in a second. For anybody who's a member of our community, times are changing, and we are welcoming in some great new staff members. And on the horn with me today is Dave Lackford, who will be our recruiting editor, and I'm really excited for everybody to get a chance to know Dave. I've known him for several years through the recruiting circuit, and he's been part of the Rivals.com network. And, first and foremost, welcome, Dave.
Hey, Kevin, thanks for having me. And I am extremely excited for the opportunity to get up into what I call the big leagues and cover a national title contender and a perennial playoff presence in Ohio State.
Absolutely. You're somebody who has some experience here in the world of covering recruiting. I've had a chance to know you at some of your previous stops or whatnot. Why don't you get everybody kind of caught up with, where you've been, what you've seen, and how you've gotten here?
Well, I broke into Rivals thanks to Mike Langston, who works down for the WarChant.com. He does all the recruiting down there for Florida State, and he used to run the site called Florida Varsity. And so Mike was like, hey, he saw that I ran my own little site called Reservations for Six, which was kind of like a knockoff Rivals, where I just talk about national stuff and try to talk about the ACC, Big Ten, whatever. And Mike was kind of like mentoring me. He said, well, why don't you come work for Florida Varsity? I'll give you a little chunk change. And I did a lot of covering of, recruits and actual games, high school level games. And then as that progressed, I became the publisher down there. Started making contacts. I finagled my way into getting all Rivals access to all the different sites. So whenever I'd find out something about a Florida kid, I'd pepper that onto a team site. Hey, my name's Dave. I work for Florida Varsity. This kid, this 3-star cornerback, is considering Wisconsin. And then, I started getting a following that way. Then I started working for Kentucky Preps. And I live in Louisville, Kentucky. And I got in good with a lot of the kids, a lot of coaches around here. And then I started going to all the different camps, following them around. I started meeting more national recruits, started talking to the national analysts. Kevin, I believe I met you at Best in the Midwest back in 2017. I'm pretty sure that's when it was. So from there, I started working for the Louisville site. And since I did such a great job there, my work was noticed by Kevin, and an opportunity presented itself. And I thank you, Kev, for extending the offer and putting me on with Ohio State.
Obviously, Dave does not have a Florida accent or a Louisville accent or anything. He's straight Philly, right?
Yeah, well, I've lived in Philly and Delaware in my formative years, and then I moved to North Carolina, did a little stint in the Marine Corps for a couple years, then I went back to Philly, and then I went to college, and then I came down to Louisville for law school. And you get a job somewhere, and you stay there. So business is good down here. I'm actually a practicing defense attorney, and I also do civil law. So if you're in the Louisville area and you catch a federal charge, give me a call. But so I've got a lot of things going on, but I write for a living. I guess I'm a professional writer as much as I've written in law school. So it's nothing for me to bang out, an article or two a day and, get some inside info and some scoop like that. So keep myself busy. I have a lot of energy, and I look forward to this new challenge here at Ohio State because it's going to be tough, but I look forward to that.
Absolutely. Stepping in, going to be, here covering a team that's got the nation's #1 recruiting class so far. We'll get into that here in a minute, but through your opportunities covering in the state of Florida and Louisville and whatnot, probably have had the opportunity to see some pretty interesting, moments and funny stories in terms of recruiting. Not all of them we can share publicly or whatnot. Anything that really kind of stands out, that during your past years of covering this, that a story you'd want to share with our listeners?
Well, I mean, there's a lot that I would love to share, but can't, as you alluded to. I guess the most interesting would be a toss-up between either Rondale Moore or Wan'Dale Robinson. Rondale's was funny because Rondale took a trip out to Texas and committed to Texas. And I am close with everyone around Rondale, not just Rondale. And I went right onto the Purdue board the day that he committed to Texas. And I said, look, he's still going to Purdue. Don't worry about it. And then, like my name kind of grew from that. And then he ends up committing to Purdue at the All-American game. And I just supplanted. Let's say I'll never have to worry about buying a meal if I go up to Purdue because Brian's going to pay for me there. And then with Wan'Dale Robinson, he was set to commit to Nebraska. And there was a phone call. I can't get into it too much. That didn't go very well. And he ended up picking Kentucky. He actually had a commitment video all set to be announced at his high school, and they cut. You know how those commitment videos go, right? The first team he actually looks like he's going to pick is definitely not the team he's going to, right? That's how it always works. So what they did, he was going to pick Kentucky and then troll Kentucky and pick Nebraska, but since he decided not to go to Nebraska the night before that ceremony, they just cut the video short and it was Kentucky. And so I got into it with the Kentucky board a little bit saying, he wasn't supposed to go to Kentucky, so I don't think this is over. And then they were doing the, I think it was still Army All-American at that point, ceremony with the jerseys. So they show up at his school in Western Hills and he puts on a red jersey instead of a blue jersey. And I start getting all these calls from my people and they're like, dude, he put on a red jersey. He's going to Nebraska. I'm like, man, you're just saying that. And they're like, no, he told me. And I'm like, nuh-uh. So I didn't know how to approach that to the Kentucky board. So I said, I was like, well, can I just say it? And my sources were like, no, you just hint at it the best you can, but don't just come out and say he's doing it. And I was like, oh my, because Kentucky was still getting a chance to keep him, right? So I didn't know what to do. So, and I was like, I wasn't as experienced now or then as I am now. So I just wrote "brace yourself" on the Kentucky site. And then the publisher, Justin Rowland, called me. You can't just leave that there. You have to expand on it. So what I did was I then elaborate a little bit more. I think that he's going to flip to Nebraska. Not totally confirmed, but it's looking like that's what's going to happen. Then I went to the Nebraska board and I said, hey, guys, I think Wan'Dale Robinson is going to flip to Nebraska. He put on a red jersey. I'll be getting all kind of calls all day, et cetera, et cetera. That thread got 1 million views over there in Nebraska. And there were even people on the Nebraska thread saying, I just signed up on the Kentucky site to see what Dave's saying over there. So I was going back between the two sites giving info, and I had people from Kentucky subscribing to the Nebraska site and people from the Nebraska site subscribing to the Kentucky site just to see what I was saying over there. So the Wan'Dale one was definitely the craziest recruitment ever. And as Ohio State fans know, both players are at Purdue and Nebraska in the Big Ten.
Well, hopefully we're not going to have to cover too many recruitments where kids are flipping away from Ohio State, but Ohio State certainly has been a program, especially under Urban Meyer previously, that's been known to flip a kid or two. So it's good to know that you already have a playbook in place, so to speak. But we'll turn our attention more specifically to Ohio State on the other side of this quick break. Hague Water Conditioning has been treating well in city water in Central Ohio with American-made water filtration products for over 60 years. Have a water quality problem? The water treatment experts at Hague know how to solve it. Not sure if your water softener is working? They will test, inspect, and sanitize any brand of water softener for only $20. Schedule a system checkup or water test today by calling 614-836-2195 or visit them online at HagueH2O.com. That's HAGUE H2O.com. Welcome back to the BIA podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Noon. I am joined by Dave Lackford as we are talking about his addition to the staff here at Buckeye Grove as we, embark on a new journey here with, moving forward. And, Dave, you get the opportunity now to cover Ohio State, and you kind of alluded to it before. You start covering in what we call in our network a high school site, which is not site specific. It just covers a territory or a state, and then you're covering Louisville and Kentucky and some other schools with this, that, and the other, and now you got Ohio State. What are you most excited about with this opportunity?
I'm excited about the fact I don't have to track down 500 offers every year, because Louisville and Kentucky, they kind of shotgun offers all over the place, where Ohio State is kind of streamlined. So that's a new challenge in itself, though, because they're definitely recruiting the most sought-after kids in the country, and those kids are, it's harder to get access to those. But, like you said, I start out at the high school level, and that's what it is. Then you go to a Louisville, Kentucky site, that's what it is. And now I'm up in the big leagues. I started out at single A, went up to double A, and I skipped triple A and went straight to the big leagues with Ohio State. So, I'm just trying to hit the curves and the sliders.
Yeah, this is no September call up either. You're here. You're here to stay. So, don't strike out is what I think all the listeners are going to be saying. You've had the opportunity to look at this class of 2021. They already have 19 players committed. Nation's number one class, according to Rivals.com, certainly a class that stands the potential of being one of the all-time great classes. What are your thoughts from what you've seen so far out of what they've put together?
It's been amazing what they've been able to do. I looked at the average ratings as well. I think they're second to Alabama. They're 3.83. Pretty sure Alabama's at like a 4, but Alabama doesn't have nearly as many commits as Ohio State, and I think they're still putting the punter in there as well. So that'll get eliminated from the equation once they get over 20 commits. Rivals only counts the top 20 for the star average, right? So with the prospects they still have on the board that could still commit, I can see that average even increasing. And I don't see them letting off the gas. I think they go through the finish line, number one. I think that they definitely have a very strong grip on it. Now, people will rise up there and challenge them for it. Sure, Georgia, Alabama hasn't really started yet. But I think that Ohio State has a commanding lead over that number one spot. And it's been crazy to watch it.
We've already had the opportunity to see a little bit of your content. We were able to run your sit down Zoom call with Jigger Burton, some other things already. But what are some things that you're working on this week that people who are just starting to learn, your content and what you're going to be providing? What should people be looking forward to?
Well, I've got the Lackford Law piece coming out. We've talked about that, Kevin, and I don't want to give too much of it away, but it's going to basically be me arguing against the rest of the country who's trying to recruit an Ohio State target, and trying to find out, why Ohio State is the best fit there. We'll be doing the regular pieces where I interview a kid, like the sit down call with Jagger Burton ran like 30 minutes. So, my stuff's going to be a lot more in depth. The skull sessions, look for them to be a little bit more meatier once we have, something that, once things reopen and society gets back to operating normally. I hope to really just nail those down and have a lot of content in there. I'm not talking 1 or 2 paragraphs. I'm talking about just flooding that thing with information. I want to be able to kind of like keep a gauge on who's going to be committing next, like the who's next pieces that we see all the time. And I also want to do a lot of in-depth film evaluation where, you kind of break down what you see on a film, not just the good, the things that need to be improved upon. So I want to do a lot of analytic type of pieces as well about kids who have committed and maybe compare the targets that are out there. If they're looking for one 4-star guard versus another 4-star guard, well, does it matter if they get one or the other? Which one fits what Ohio State does best based upon their particular attributes? So that's the type of stuff that I'm looking forward to doing from the recruiting side. And I'm sure you'll task me with new things and we'll come up with new ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, it's going to be a work in progress. And I think that between you and Joseph on the recruiting side and Griffin on the team side, I think that there's a lot of stuff to be excited about. I know that for a lot of people, change is scary, but it's thrust upon us, and we're going to just grow from this and move on. And I really am excited for the opportunity to work with Dave. And I know he's not one that necessarily wants somebody to heap a bunch of praise on him, but I've watched him grow up in this industry, and this opportunity to work with him means the world to me. And I think that most importantly, the passion and excitement that he shows for all of this is going to come out in his interactions with everybody over on the Horseshoe Lounge, in his content and everything else. So, I think this is going to be a great fit moving forward.
Well, thanks for the endorsement. I don't like to talk about myself very much. I guess I need to get better at self-promotion, but I really appreciate the vote of confidence, and I can't thank you enough for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So we are going to call it a show for now, and be sure to look for all of Dave's content on BuckeyeGrove.com. For Dave, I'm Kevin, and I am your host for the BIA podcast, and we will talk to you very soon.
Be sure to stay up to date with Buckeye Grove Instant Access when the news breaks or after the big game, exclusively at BuckeyeGrove.com or anytime on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher as part of the Unscripted Ohio Podcasts Network. Hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the know and never miss a single episode.